Good afternoon, dear students. Today I'll be dealing with the poem Coming by Philip Larkin, which exists in Unit 2 of MA Final 8th A paper. Now, the name of the poem is Coming and is written by Philip Larkin. Now, I'm already sharing the text with you on the screen, and I'll be reading the poem and then we'll be moving on further to the explanation. Now, before beginning with the poem, I would just like to give you a little bit of introduction about Philip Larkin. Philip Larkin was born in England, and he was a well-known leader of the movement in the English poetry in the early 50s. Now, he had written many poems, and there has been a variety of themes that have ever existed in his poems. Whether you talk about the survival and the death's inevitability, whether you talk about love, whether you talk about change, whether you talk about disenchantment, whether you talk about mystery, whether you talk about implications of the poet's survival, about death, so many other things you talk about. So it exists in Philip Larkin poetry. Now, let's come to the text. I'm reading the text. No matter this is a poem, a short poem of 19 lines, it has an in-depth meaning and various connotations which need to be understood and dealt in a deeper level. On longer evenings, light chill and yellow bathes the serene foreheads of houses. A thrush sings, laurel sounded, in the deep bare garden, its fresh peeled voice astonishing the brickwork. It will be spring soon, it will be spring soon. And I, whose childhood is forgotten boredom, feel like a child who comes on a scene of adult reconciling and can understand nothing but the unusual laughter and starts to be happy. Now, the poem Coming by Philip Larkin is about spring and how emotional its arrival can be. The peace, the joy, and the promise of spring rubs off on Larkin as the speaker speaks in a beautiful way. He's presenting in a beautiful way both the emotions that he is dealing with. Now, no matter the poem has been taken from the volume the less deceived, which establishes a kingship with the environment. Coming by Philip Larkin is a 19-line poem, and it can be separated into one set of 9 lines and another set of 10 lines each. This is the way you can study it. Although we don't have any rhyming scheme in this poem, it is unified by the similar lengths of the lines with a blissful, peaceful tone. Now, it is naturally understood that when we talk about nature, you can say it's a nature poem, but it is not only a nature poem. Because in nature, when you talk about nature, you only say, okay, yes, what's there, what's the big deal about it? Every nature poet talks about seasons and springs and welcoming the beauty of nature, understanding and presenting nature as serene, calm, beautiful, spontaneous, natural, attractive, and so many other things, enchanting. So many adjectives we can connect with nature, and all the nature poets have been doing this. Whether you talk about Robert Frost, whether you talk about William Wordsworth, whether you talk about any other poet of any kind, any age, whether American or whether romantics. But here we don't have that specific, cliched, or you can say a kind of a normal poem which only deals with the beauty of nature and then he stops. No, we have concealed hidden meanings here. We have emotions of the poet, in which the poet describes the culmination of blissful emotions within a speaker, and as a result of this, he soon arriving of the spring season, how these emotions are connected and how they are correlated to each other. So, let's begin with the poem. Now, starting with the first lines, Larkin crafts a narrative that seems to build towards something spectacular when he says, on longer evenings, now see the beginning, on longer evenings, light chill and yellow bathes the serene foreheads of houses. Now, here the poet states that he is living within a world that is filled with certain kind of emotional physicality. Now, what does emotional physicality means? He's talking about, now see, when each and every poet talks about the world and he talks about what's happening in the world, he just says that the world is in dire need of calmness, a kind of solitude, a kind of serenity, a kind of peace. And this peace is can only be derived if a person comes back to nature. So, Larkin here talks about in his poem by placing his narrative within a specific setting. That is, the poem, again, it has two interconnected elements we talk about: the speaker's life, that is, of the setting of the poem, and the emotions related to the specific sights and sounds. So, the poet here, he talks to the reader through what is essentially an emotional landscape playing out through images of domesticity and spontaneous beauty. You know what is domesticity related to homely emotions, and spontaneous beauty, something. Nature is always spontaneous, it's always natural, it's always soothing, it has balming effects, soothing effects. So Larkin here conveys a message, and of course this poem has a message, because there are certain evenings that are somewhat more special than the other. Longer evenings, here he's talking about the special evenings. They are more longer, they are more special, they are beautiful than the other evenings. So during the times when the air feels light, chill and yellow. Now air, the feeling of the air is light, it's a little bit cold, and also the color. So see, all the way adjective has been used for air, and there is an calmness to the scene, or to the evening, which cannot be described, which is something which is cannot be escaped and which cannot be described. So serenity rarely exists in this world, but has bathed the surroundings. So here again, the most important, I think, adjective that we can connect with nature is serene, being serene, or serenity. And what serenity is doing? Serenity is rarely existing in the world here, means amidst people. When the mind are serene, then only serenity exists. But nature is serene. Why? Because nature always gives. Nature is a giver. And this is a normal practice that even if you do, or human beings do, that when they become a giver, they become serene. Serene from where? From the mind, from the heart. So here he is talking about the serenity. We'll stop here and we'll continue the poem in the next class. Thank you.